Hey everybody, welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour. I'm your host, John the Bod, aka the Bod Father. Today I have an awesome interview for you guys. As always, I have Mr. Michael Angelo Batio. We're going to be talking about his new CD that's out, Intermezzo, and I got the guitar legend right here on the line with me. Michael, how's it going?
Oh, good. Great.
Glad to have you on the show, and like I told you before as we were talking, you're a phenomenal guitar player, a legend by your own means, man, and this is just an honor to have you on here.
Oh, thanks.
Let's talk about Intermezzo. Now, you have a full cast of guest guitar players on here, plus you have some bass players on here too. Let's talk about the CD that's out right now.
Yeah, it was released worldwide December 20th, and I wanted to, it's all new original material. I wanted to get a few of my friends that I'm fans of on the record, and one thing led to another, and next thing I know, I have over 15 great guest stars. And it started with Jeff Loomis, and once I got him, then I got Rusty Cooley, then George Lynch followed, then Craig Goldie from Dio, then Guthrie Govan, then Michael Romeo from Symphony X, Chris Poland from Megadeth. It was one after another, and they all brought their A game to the table, and I think the results are great. I'm really pleased.
You also have my good friend on here, Dave Reffett, and
That's right. And Dave was really pretty much instrumental in, he was kind of like my right-hand man on this. He's not only a young, great guitar player, but some of the people that I knew, like I know George Lynch, but I'm not super good friends with him. Dave is. And so, Dave and I kind of put our heads together. He was a very important part of the record. And he even contributed a song called Juggernaut, which is killer. It's got, Michael Romeo on there, Mike LePond, Symphony X's bass player. But I credit Dave with a lot. I couldn't have really done all this without him. And but yeah, he's a great guitar player, a great person, and he's the one who helped get some of these other guests. I knew everybody, but he was in better, more close contact with some of them.
And like you said, you have a whole slew of guests on here, and plus you have the guy from Dean Guitars. Is that correct? He's also on here?
That's right. I'm a Dean Guitar in Dorsey, and the owner of Dean Guitars, I don't know of any other guitar company owner. Like, for example, Paul Reed Smith it's a good company, a really great company. Paul plays guitar, but Elliot is a superior bass player. I mean, he's not just good, he's great. And he's really passionate about the instrument. And yeah, I wrote a song that I thought would fit him perfectly, and it's called 8 Pillars of Steel. And the 8 pillars are Elliot's one of them, and 7 guest stars. So, but he played a great bass solo on that, and yeah, I'm just really pleased. It was a great addition to the album, and people don't know that here's this owner and CEO of one of the biggest guitar companies in the world that happens to be monster bass player.
Yeah, once I saw it and I saw that he was the owner of Dean Guitars, I was like, that's pretty cool because, in all honesty, Michael, you never see anybody asking an owner to come on to do a CD. So I think that's really cool for you to reach out to do that.
Well, thanks. I've always tried to, it's a cliched phrase, think outside the box, but I always have. I mean, the way, I was signed to 2 major labels very earlier in my career, so I know what it's like to be on Warner Brothers and Atlantic Records, and I know what it's like to tour. I know what it was like during the heyday of MTV to have the formula where you put out the mid-tempo rocker, then you hit them with the power ballad. So I saw the way the corporate structure works in music, and I told myself, I don't really want to do it that way. Right. I want to play music I want to play. I want to do the double guitar the way I want to do it, and that's it. And I've been very fortunate, and again, I credit with people like Dave or Elliot, Dave Reffett or Elliot, the owner of Dean. I work with really great people. I don't do it alone. I'm not a lone wolf.
You were talking about thinking outside the box. In today's day and age of guitar playing and the way the industry is, you kind of have to keep doing that with every CD and everything that you do. And it's not like it used to be as far as, back in the day, as I call it, coming up and playing music and stuff. But do you think the digital age has helped musicians, or do you think it's actually declined musicians? What do you think?
Well, I think that it's a little of both, because what's happened is it's people, for whatever reason, just don't think twice about downloading a song for free. And to me, I never do it. I mean, I've spent thousands of dollars on iTunes. You know, if I'm going to, I buy things. Right. Nobody likes to work for free, and I don't want to sound like Lars, but when I was growing up, it's like you said, back in the day, what was the goal? To get on a major label, to get your songs heard on the radio, to tour, and to hopefully get MTV videos. Right. What is there now? What do? You get your song on YouTube, and you know, it's so different, but the good thing about it is that the artist has a lot of control over what they do. See, that's what I did a long time ago. When I went online in 1995. I didn't even, a website looked like hieroglyphics to me. I couldn't even, my email address, I didn't even understand it. But I got a website, and when I realized that the internet could transfer a digital file, binary code for a CD, zeros and ones, I knew this was going to be like a revolution. It was just a matter of time before the speeds were fast enough. So that's when I started my own record company, and I've had my own label ever since, and now it's worldwide digital distribution, and I really have it dialed in. But I thought this way a long time ago, and now this seems to be the way. For example, Alter Bridge, they released a record on their own. Yep. A lot of bands opt to do that because there's not the benefit. You don't get the benefit of the label support anymore because they don't put the money behind the bands like they used to. So I just think it's different. Some things are better, some things are worse. But you know, artists are still doing really well that know how to work in this new musical world that we live in.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I wanted your opinion on this. Do you think that labels actually don't see the musicians as musicians and only see as money? You know what I'm saying? What's your opinion?
Well, I think they've always done that.
Okay.
I think that if you look historically, for example, you know, I like to look at things like study the Beatles and Led Zeppelin like I'd study Bach. Mm-hmm. When you look at the 60s when rock was becoming really huge, the labels controlled the Beatles. It was EMI Capitol. But in the 70s, Led Zeppelin had their own label. Emerson, Lake and Palmer had their own label. See, the bands took total control. I mean, Zeppelin, you know, was flying around on their own jet. Yeah. They were making hundreds of millions of dollars. Then it switched. Then the label said, wait, forget this. All of a sudden, the 80s, the labels took back control, but they were giving bands $1 million to do a record. And then in the 90s, the hip-hop guys stole the idea from Led Zeppelin and started their own labels. So I think, but what I can say is this. Every single major label record I've ever been on is available, and I virtually get no royalties for it. They did some really weird things with one of the bands I was in called Holland. We were on Atlantic Records. Mm-hmm. They actually sold the rights to this little indie label that's making money off my music, and I can't touch it.
Wow.
So it's really weird, and I can't be bitter about it. I'm not mad. So, but they weren't as always honest with the artists. So I don't think they really respected a lot of the musicians. But it was only the Led Zeppelins and the biggest artists that were able to really do well in the major label world.
Intermezzo, I have to say, is really cool because you do have a lot of guest appearances on here, and I think a lot of collaboration went into this, and I think bands should do that more often, especially guitar players like you guys. It's like a big family with you all. How is the touring with Intermezzo? How's the fans liking the music? Getting good vibes or anything from them? What's going on with that?
Since the record came out December 20th, we are going to be touring for that this year, and I kind of divide my year between a few different ways that I tour. I always do 100 to 120, 130 shows a year around the world. So we're looking at, the same this year, hopefully even more. And so about a third of the shows will be touring for the music of Intermezzo. Other third will be touring. I have a tribute to rock guitar multimedia show. It's really awesome with a great singer, and then I do solo performances too, which are a combination of the two, but it's instrumental. I don't have vocals to it, but it's going to be a lot of fun to play. The music's really heavy. It's progressive, and I have great players to play it. And Elliot, the owner of Dean, will be out on some of the shows with me.
Oh, that's really cool.
To tour, so it'll be great.
That's really cool. Now, I want to ask you this. I like Alter Bridge, and I've seen that you got to do. You actually played with them on stage. How was that, man?
Well, it was great. Mark and I are really close friends. He played on 2 of my solo albums. I actually worked with him, on his lead guitar playing. I mean, here the guy's sold 40 million albums, with Creed, and he's got #1 hit songs, but he didn't really come from a lead guitar school.
Right.
So, we talked about, for example, the way I set up my lead guitar sound, he does it in a very similar way. What goes through the effects loop, what goes through the front end, and he gets a great sound, and he's a great player.
Mm-hmm. Now, you do NAMM, of course. A lot of people do NAMM every year. But what keeps bringing you back to NAMM? And, is that one of your favorite clinics, or what's one of your favorite clinics?
You mean is NAMM one of my favorite things?
Well, yeah, I mean, you do NAMM every year.
Well, NAMM being that it's a music show, it's in January. It's a great way to start the year. You get to see a lot of familiar faces, especially, being that it's in Southern California. You can hang out with, all my rock star buddies are there. It's not unusual to see Gene Simmons or Keanu Reeves walking down the aisles because it's close to the public. So and then we get to do a lot of high profile shows, which I'm doing 3 at the NAMM show. One with Dave Ruffett. We're doing the NAMM Metal Jam, and then I'm doing 2 shows called Extreme Cream, where it's a tribute to Cream, and then we've got everybody from Don Dokken and people from Whitesnake. The list of people, Kofi Baker, Ginger Baker's son, that was in the original Cream. Nice. So it's an amazing way to kick off the year. It's just an awesome event.
I would love to see that, but I can't fly. I can't do it. But any new bands out right now that you like, or guitarists that you would like to get a chance to play with?
Some of them are on my record. Okay. With Intermezzo, for example, a newer guitarist, Jeff Loomis, he plays 7-string. He's really great. The guitarist Guthrie Govan, the British guitar player, he did 2 solos on the album. He's fantastic. There's another British guitarist named Jackie Vincent. I played on his latest album, myself and Paul Gilbert. He's he's 23 years old, up and coming, really great player. New bands like Periphery, they're not so new. They have 2 albums out. Animals as Leaders. I really try to listen to as many young new players as I can. Mm-hmm. And I think, as far as guitar, I think really the playing is better than ever. Mm-hmm. And the music industry has changed drastically, but I think the caliber of musicians in rock and jazz, everything, country, it's amazing. I really think the young players are fantastic.
Speaking of that, what does it mean to you when you have upcoming guitar players come up to you and say, man, I look up to you, I've loved your music, and you inspire me? What does that mean to you?
Well, it's a great question, because I've been kind of the teacher to the stars. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is, when I was going to college, I had a student named Tom, and Tom told me he had speeditis. He said one hand's faster than the other. Well, I work with Tom. His last name is Morello, and he went on to be in a fairly big band called Rage Against the Machine. And so I taught him. I had Dimebag come up to me at a show, tell me that he studied my instructional videos. I had John Petrucci tell me that. Michael Romeo. I work with Mark Tremonti. I mean, the list goes on and on. And I think it's really honored. I'm honored to see people that have studied my techniques go on to be so big. But then by DVDs, when and through my instructional stuff, whether it's magazines, I've had a lot of people say that the way I teach is simple. I can show really complex ideas in a really simple way, and it resonates towards people who want to be, I'm there to teach. I'm not there to show people how much I know. Right. And I've never tried to tell people to play like me.
Right.
I tell what my method is to say, look, at other great players play in this style. There's differences, but this is generally what they do. And I give them that idea. So it's almost more fulfilling than touring and making records, to know that what you did has helped somebody else.
Yeah.
And so I'm really honored by that.
Yeah, it's not like, hey, look, I can play this, and you buy a ticket to come watch. It's like, I'm going to teach you and show you how. Let me teach you this. That's really cool.
I mean, even Herman Lee from Dragon Force, he's a good friend. Yeah. He told me that he studied my speed kills, studied my over-under technique. I mean, and then I had Corey and Matt from Trivium. They said the same thing. Mm-hmm. So I have this whole generation of younger players, the generation that's out now being successful. It's kind of like multi-generational. And I think, one of the reasons is the things that I talk about, the way I play guitar, it stood the test of time, the techniques that I used. And I think with Intermezzo, it's still, I'm hopefully at the top of my game. I mean, I feel like it. I feel good. So, I've always wanted to help other players, and it's nice to get it back.
I tried to play guitar when I was younger, and I couldn't play Mary Had a Little Lamb to save my life. And I said, forget it, I'll just stick to interviewing people.
Yeah, well, it's funny. When I was a kid, I started at 10, and I have a younger sister, and because I played guitar, she had to play guitar.
Oh, yeah.
So a few years into it, she's playing this song, and it doesn't sound so good. And I remember my mom going, Mike, why don't you play this song? Show your sister how to do it. And I'm playing it, and it sounds correct. And my mom goes to my sister. She goes, well, why don't you sound like him? And she goes, well, there's like sharps and flats in this. They're too hard to play, so I don't play them. She didn't want to learn it.
Yeah.
And then my mom realized she doesn't want to play anyway. And but it was funny because I just took it so serious.
Yeah.
I love to play guitar, and I have a great time doing it. I mean, the double guitar for me is fun. I mean, it's just I enjoy it. It's fun to play, and I take it serious and have a good time doing it.
Right. Do you prefer the quad or do you prefer the double guitar? What's I know you said you like the double, but what's your favorite one of all that you like?
Well, I mean, my quad guitar got a lot of publicity, when it came out. Mm-hmm. And it's been voted like one of the most outrageous moments in rock history in some magazines. But I mean, the double's really my trademark. Mm-hmm. The quad was an answer to Steve Vai's 3-neck guitar. Yeah. Because when he did a version of my guitar with the heart guitar, he added a 3rd neck, and our record company at the time wanted me to challenge him to a duel on the guitars. I said, what is this, the Olympics? What are we, is this a gunfight?
Yeah.
And they made a joke. They said, Michael, you have 2 guitars. Steve Vai did 3. What can you do? And I made a joke. I went, 4. And they go, we love it. We love it. And so that's how the quad even came about. It was a meeting with our record company of what they wanted to capitalize on the fact that Steve Vai did one of my guitars, and they wanted me literally to challenge him to a duel. I thought it was outrageous. I mean, that's not music, and I love Steve Vai. Right. But that's how. But I think the double is more my trademark. The quad is, to me, 2 doubles.
Now, Intermezzo,
but it's fun to play.
Intermezzo, you recorded it using your new Dean signature MAV 7 Warrior.
That's right.
Now, the 7-string, for people that are kind of tempted to go 7-string, is it a lot different? I mean, I know it's just the extra string added, but is it a lot more to it, or no?
Well, I think they are here to stay. Mm-hmm. For example, people have tried 5- and 6-string violins. They don't really catch on. Mm-hmm. But the public, people have spoken with the 7-string. In fact, my original quad guitar way back in the old days had 7 strings on the 2 top necks. So I've been a 7-string thinker for a long time. But the thing that, for anybody who plays guitar out there that's thinking about playing a 7, there's 2 reasons why they're so popular, I think. One, it's very logical to add that 7th string. It's like all you have to do is get used to the neck being a little wider, and you start riffing on it, and you're like, I get it. It's easy to understand. It's kind of like if you can drive a 4-speed on a car and you add an extra gear. Well, how much harder is it to put in a 5th gear?
Right.
It's really not that hard. And the other, so it's got that going for it. It's just not that hard to figure out. And the second thing, it sounds awesome. I mean, you play a riff on a low B, it's like death. It just sounds killer. And there's just this tone about it that just makes everything sound meaner. And so I think it's the tone and the ease of the way you can think about it. And plus, it's not that hard to play once you get used to the neck.
Right, and it's like the first time I heard Korn when they first came out, and they introduced the 7-string. You know, to me, of course, you know, I didn't know anything about it, and then when you hear it, it's like, whoa, what was that?
Yeah, and then you get used to it, and then you hear sick, like I mean, listen to like old Judas Priest.
Yeah.
I mean, that was heavy back in the day, but it doesn't sound heavy anymore because it's tuned up higher.
Right.
You know, I mean, I love them. Don't get me wrong, and I mean, Black Sabbath still sounds heavy, but when you add that low B to it, and now they have 8-string where it gets even lower, I mean, where does it end? But I'm not so sure 8 strings are a fad or not. I don't think they're going. I think they're going to be, you know, in style, out of style, in style, out of style. But I think 7 strings will not go away. I think they might not ever be as big as 6 strings, but they're going to be there for a long time to come.
Right, totally agree. Now, speaking of Black Sabbath, I was going to ask you this: what do you think of 13? How did I thought it was a pretty good album.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, and I read an interview with Ozzy, you know, because if you listen to his solo record before that, and you know, the last one with Gus G and then the one with Zach Wild, it's so overproduced. The production's immaculate, but it's so production heavy. And I remember him saying that he thought that it was the wrong way to go to strip it down like how they did it in the early days, but I think it was the right way to go, and he said he was wrong. He said the results were great. I love it. I mean, it's just vicious. You know, it's like what Black Sabbath is.
Yeah, I totally agree. When I first heard the album, started listening to it, I said, "My God, it's Black Sabbath from '79 when they last made the last CD." You know?
Yeah, I mean, the guitar tones are there.
Yeah.
You know, the bass, you know, I mean, and then Ozzy, I mean, he might not be able to sing as high as he used to, but he sounds like Ozzy, and that's all he needs to do.
That's exactly
he sounds great.
Exactly right. Michael, is there any new techniques that you would suggest any new guitarists starting out to learn just with the basics?
What I would do, you know, if I was, what I usually recommend to people are 2 things. There's basic techniques on a guitar. I mean, I can go through them. You know, there's multiple different ways: alternate picking, economy picking, strumming. But the thing that makes guitar so amazing, it's bar none the most, especially the electric guitar, it's the most versatile instrument on the planet. I could have my rig set up. Eddie Van Halen could walk up to it and play it. Sounds like him. Mark Tremonti sounds like him. Zach Wild sounds like him. You would sound like you. I sound like me. There's no other instrument like it. And so what I usually tell people when they start off is the best thing to do would be getting a teacher. And the other thing is watch instructional programs of famous guitarists. I mean, if I'm a basketball player, what do? I practice, but then I watch games. I watch the Michael Jordans. Or if I'm a professional baseball player, I mean, if I want to play baseball, I watch the pros and work on the technique. So that's what I say in music too. You know, you can go to YouTube, you can get my DVDs, John Petrucci, anybody, but watch the pros and then get private instruction and practice. There's no shortcut. You got to practice.
Intermezzo is out in stores right now, guys. You can go to iTunes or Amazon and purchase it. Myself, I buy these, and I like doing the digital way to go and purchase them that way. But, you know, like I said, check out Intermezzo with Michael and check out his CD. Thank you so much for doing this interview with me. Like I said, you know, you're a guitar legend in my own book, and you know, it's just phenomenal to hear you still play and still kicking ass, man.
Oh, thank you. It was great. Great questions. And sorry, my voice is a little hoarse. It's only about 20 below zero here today in Chicago. I mean, we've been pummeled. How is it in your area?
I'm in Kentucky, and we got about 2 inches of snow, but before that, yesterday morning, we had freezing rain, and I hit it twice going to work, and my truck slid sideways. So I'm very lucky to be here today. Very.
Yeah. Are you in Louisville, around that area?
I'm around the eastern part towards Pike County, close to West Virginia.
Oh, okay, cool. So, that sounds nice. Yeah, I've been to Kentucky a lot, but usually, we take I-65. So, when it's not, Louisville is really the city I've been to the most. Yeah. But no, it's great. It was a great interview. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Michael. Hey, how can people get a hold of you to say, man, we love your music, instructional videos? How can they do that? Yeah,
my website is angelo.com, and I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and then, my email address is real simple, michael@angelo.com.
Awesome. Before I let you go, would you care to do any promo for the show?
Sure. Hi, this is Michael Angelo Batio, and you're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening to the interview this evening. I want to thank Michael Angelo Batio for being on the show. Check out Intermezzo. We've got some music coming up from that CD right here on BODS Mayhem Hour. Check it out. You're going to love it. If you don't, oh well. Trust me, you will. But anyway, stick around. Stick around. We got some more music coming up. You only hear these interviews right here on BODS Mayhem Hour and Uber City Radio.